What's the link between software and your health? Hi, my name is Oded, and in this podcast I'll talk about software development in the field of medical device, pharmaceutical, and healthcare with industry-leading experts. In this episode, I'll speak with Frances Cohen from Promenade Software based in California to have a closer look on medical device software development and the challenge of going to the cloud. Hi Frances, thank you very much for participating. Maybe we can start by you telling us a bit about yourself professionally.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I have a long background in computer systems. My start was way back in the 80s. At UCLA, I was an undergrad in geophysics, and they just came out with the Apple IIe and followed by the first PC. And I was working in the department and got to do some projects on it, so I kind of fell in love with it and actually got my geophysics degree, and then went back to school and got a computer engineering degree over in Israel in the Technion, the Israel Institute of Technology. Anyway, when I came back, I did work in system BIOS, Phoenix Technology, but I started in medical device at Cardiac Science back in 2001. Cardiac Science, if you don't know, they did defibrillators. They've gotten bought and sold several times. I'm not sure what their name is nowadays. But they do hospital and AEDs, defibrillators. So I got my introduction to basically a class 3 device, making the software for a defibrillator. And that was an invaluable experience, and I really enjoyed that. So after they got bought and merged, I moved on to a company called Source Scientific that is a contract manufacturer making multiple different types of devices for OEMs. And I ran their software department. They got purchased by BIT Analytical Instruments, and we got to work on some of the larger diagnostic instruments, which was a lot of fun. But at about 2013, I decided to branch out and create my own company with my business partner, Daniel Beard. And that was Promenade. And the goal for Promenade was to solve some of the issues that we would see over and over again in the medical device manufacturing arena. Overall, medical device is behind the times for some of the newer development, and it also has some very special needs that are not often well addressed and cause a lot of delays in development. And those needs are really the ability for the scientists and other engineering departments to be able to know what's going on inside and tweak it, to be able to tune it, to be able to probe and see different temperatures, or see if the temperature curve is correct, or any type of embedded sensor control of the system type of thing. So when we started our own company, we set out to make a framework that was a system built for test. And that we've been going forward with since, the idea of making frameworks so that you're not starting from scratch on things and you have a baseline for development that suits the needs of our clients.
That is very, very impressive. So, as you probably know, as software developers, we are always being challenged to go faster, but at the same time to improve quality. What would you advise teams on building quality into the software development lifecycle so they can both accelerate but have confidence in the quality?
Sure. Well, the absolute key to that is to have the baseline frameworks, to not be starting from scratch, which I've seen so many times in the industry where every engineer basically starts with a clean slate and designs their system and makes their mistakes. You really you set out with a architecture, a framework, all the baseline in place, and from that, you're only changing the customer specifics. You're only writing the customer specifics. The framework's already been made for this testability, for the communications, for all the things that every device sort of needs. And that allows you to be very efficient for the client, building quality, and make a happy engineer, if you were, because they're happy that they're able to deliver and not be under the stress of that you often will have if you are starting from scratch.
I see. So the framework basically provide a solution to commonly encountered problems?
Absolutely. So the framework lets you, first of all, it's a framework that's designed for tests. So you can poke and prod into any of the system and see what's going on. So you're not running blind. When you're making one of these devices, it's very hard to debug with your standard tools what's going on. However, if you design it into your software, self-instrumenting, then you can look at anything. You can say, okay, this chemistry is not working for maybe an IBD device. Let's look at the temperature curves. Let's look at the, anything in the system that could be causing a problem as it's happening, as it's live. Collect the data. There's so many variables in making these instruments. You've got chemistry involved. You've got physics, mechanical, electrical, and of course the software. So you need to enable all of those pieces to debug themselves, to be able to know what's going on. And the software can do that, but it needs to be designed. And that's the type of framework I'm talking about. So you get this baseline that allows everybody to test.
Would you say those probing can be also automated? So if you are modifying now an existing system, you can run most of those probing tests?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of the framework has the communications piece that you can write Python scripts to automate from your laptop. The automated test is crucial to be able to run that automatically and pick up anything that might have changed in the development that breaks things.
So that also supports like shorter cycles and really more the sprint where you don't test everything at the end, right?
Absolutely not. Yeah, no, you need to be testing along the way. We do a combination of the automated testing and a test engineer just testing the integration of the system, because you have multiple people on a team, and at the end of the sprint, they're all pushing their code in, getting it reviewed, running their unit tests. But there has to be this integration test to make sure it all plays well and something didn't possibly break something else. So that is a constant process. We have a CI/CD process where every time something is pushed into the master repository, it will build it. If there's any build problems, that will be caught, and then we can test it as we go.
Very insightful. Thank you. It would be very interesting to know from your experience, what do you see the key factors for building high-performing software teams?
That's a large question with a lot to it. When we are looking for engineers, the team is very important. Are they team players? Are they smart? Can they contribute? Even if they don't have the specific experience, what we need, if they are smart and have the right attitude and work with the team, they can learn. And that's what we always look for in our engineers, is that combination of attitude and capability and intelligence and interpersonal skills to work together, because the team is so important on these things. The team has to work well together. One person on the team can bring down the entire team with attitude. So it's critical that all those elements are there. It's not just finding the best coder. It's finding the person that can work together and code well.
What do medical device companies need to consider in this age of IoT?
A lot. We actually, there's a lot to that as well. One of the main things, of course, is the regulatory aspect. hospitals are getting hit by ransomware right and left, and some of that comes from medical devices because historically they're not very well protected. It's always been the attitude of having accessibility over security, and that is changing, right? But it is a focus of the FDA right now to make sure the medical devices are secure. So one of the big hurdles for the manufacturers is to pass their submission from the cybersecurity point of view. And we have helped quite a few manufacturers, even if we didn't develop the device, get their documentation in line, make the changes they need if they need to make them to pass. So that's a big hurdle. The other is, beyond just getting it past the FDA, are you secure? Are you supporting HIPAA in the cloud? If you're putting patient information up there, do you have personal information that needs controls? Do you have health information that needs HIPAA compliance? Are you supporting the GDPR? Do you have European clients? Or California, the California CCPA Protection Act, Privacy Act, I think it is. All those things have to be considered when you're connecting to the cloud, because obviously that's a vector for attacks, theft of information, or attacking even the device. If, for instance, you're configuring the device via the cloud, what are you doing to protect that some man-in-the-middle attack didn't happen and you get a bad configuration? Or updates. Are your updates secured? Are they signed? Are they, can they be tampered with along the way? Can they be tampered with? All those things need to be addressed. So there is a lot to consider, but the benefits are huge for the manufacturers to be able to update in the field, to be able to collect information, whether it's clinical information or running some, even machine learning algorithms to pick up some trends or things like that, or just to provide client services like maybe disposables, to automatically reorder disposables as a service type of thing. So there are huge benefits, but you have to be careful and you have to make sure you are secure and follow all the regulations.
What are the additional driving forces that are pushing companies toward going to the cloud?
Well, like I mentioned before, there's so much good data manufacturer and their clients can get from these devices, and the only place you can get them is to collect it in the cloud. So if the device is able to provide information, usage information, maybe you can tell when it's time for service, or maybe you can get diagnostic information and pre-detect something going wrong or not behaving correctly. So your typical device that just stood in the corner and worked independently just doesn't provide any of those capabilities. And that is still, there's still a lot of devices that are like that, but it's such a huge benefit. I mean, data is king, right? Data provides so much usable, financially and scientifically valuable information.
And what can manufacturers with existing device that they didn't have cloud in mind when they approved and developed those devices, what can they do at this stage?
Well, they can connect. So there's a lot of different levels of not being prepared. Does the device have the communications in any way wired, USB? Can data be pulled out of the device? If not, well, then they're going to have to try to set up their communications internally so that they can get what they need. The part about connecting to the cloud is relatively easy. If you're talking about a small device with an embedded system, you can just add a module that has your Wi-Fi, Bluetooth connectivity support. And from that, you can connect up to networks in the cloud, or sell even if you need to go direct. Some of our clients put in sell because it's hard to get on hospital networks. They want to collect information, so that allows them to go direct. But I mean, the connectivity piece is relatively easy to resolve. If the system is more advanced, if it's running Linux or Windows, it already has all that capability built in. It just needs to be enabled. But again, the harder part is if you're not designed to provide information, if your software is not designed for that, then you're going to have to put in some effort to get the information.
So maybe you can tell us maybe a bit about, I know you're offering different frameworks and solutions. You discussed it at the beginning, but maybe you can a bit elaborate about those solutions?
Sure. One thing I didn't discuss earlier was our Cybermed Cloud, which is our cloud solution specifically for medical devices. Cybermed Cloud is designed around what we saw the needs were in that field, which are the scenarios of data sharing, for instance. You might have a patient for at-home use of a device, and their therapist and group of therapists are given access rights to follow the information. For instance, say there's some sort of therapeutic device that's at home. They can look at the data. They can see how it's being used or not used. All the information so that when the patient goes in, they can kind of help them tune what they're doing or change parameters or things like that. They can see the data, which is very helpful. Also, if a machine is, say, in a hospital, well, there's certain people that have different privileges to access it. And so setting up the different privilege levels is important for your, say, physician and your administrator. And, maybe you have a technician that can access certain parts. So they have all different privilege levels to protect the instrument and make sure that nobody has authority and capability to do something that they're, at their level they shouldn't. What else is in the cloud? So HIPAA, of course, is part of the cloud. It's very central. So HIPAA and cybersecurity and Cybermed Cloud is really front and center of what it is because of the situation. Because we're dealing with sensitive information, we need to make sure it's hyper secure. The part about the documentation and the submission is already, that part of it is already covered. Part of the submission, you have to do penetration testing, you have to do threat analysis, all those things. And there's a part of that that's always on the device, but a part of that's the cloud, and you don't have to worry about that. That's already been done. We're already been tested and have the documentation. So that's the one platform. Going back to the development platform, which is Parlay, well, in order to get information to the cloud, you do have to have this communications framework, and that our Parlay framework, which is our development platform that was designed for tests that we talked about, is also a communications hub. So, for instance, if I want to send to the cloud streaming data, or if I want to send the logs, or I want to send anything that's going on in the system, I can very easily set that up. The framework also has the communications to our cloud as part of it, so when a client comes to us, they don't have to pay for that piece either. So these frameworks are, as they're trying to make it efficient for tests, they're also trying to make medical device into the 21st century, right? They're trying to make sure that we can easily connect up to the clouds, clearly connect up to the cloud, use different technologies that are available to do so, and up the level of capabilities.
So you would say it's the framework is in all stations. It's at the device level itself. It's at the mobile app, and it's at the cloud. If I understand correctly, yes.
That is absolutely correct. We call them two separate frameworks. The Parlay framework is in the devices and the mobile device. Cybermed Cloud is the data store, the access account information, the authentication piece. That's the Cybermed Cloud.
Oh, thank you. And so maybe just to finish up, you can tell us how can people get more information or follow your publications?
Sure. Well, first, I guess go to our website, promenadesoftware.com. You can get a lot of information about what we do. in our platforms, Cybermed Cloud, our Parlay platform, the development test platform. We have a blog post and some white papers, so you can look under our blog. It's called blog/resources to see different posts. And of course, if you have any questions at all, we do have a contact page where you can just ask a question, and I'll be happy to personally answer your questions.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.